Hello and welcome to the episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Tuesday, May 30th. Hope everyone's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact Tuesday, May 30th here today. We are now 2 days away, or I guess technically if you want to say 1 day away from the month of June as we close out here May. Yesterday was Memorial Day. Hope everybody enjoyed their Memorial Day yesterday. Had a lot going on with all the baseball on. Unfortunately, the Yankees were on late. Mets didn't have, Mets had a day off, so there wasn't a ton going on in New York baseball during the day, but obviously at night, the New York Yankees and their bats came through in a big way. We'll get to that here to start off the show today. But yesterday was awesome. I mean, you had a ton of sports on. I think, a lot of people, including myself, were hoping that the Celtics and the Dallas Stars games would go a little bit in a different direction in terms of them being a little bit closer. The Heat dominate the Celtics in Game 7 to move on to the NBA Finals. They'll face the Nuggets in Game 1 of the NBA Finals starting on Thursday, June 1st in Denver. So it would be Nuggets, Miami Heat, little Nikola Jokic versus Jimmy Butler. Should be an exciting series. But that game was a blowout. And in Game 6, Dallas Stars trying to force a Game 7. That game was a blowout as well as the Vegas Golden Knights defeat the Dallas Stars 6-0. Early goal by Vegas. A couple minutes into the game, Ottinger kind of got faked out, was a patient play, and they scored, and it was 1-0, and there was really no looking back there for Vegas. So they move on. They'll face the Florida Panthers in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup on Saturday. So the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup is all set. You got Nuggets, Heat, Thursday Game 1, and Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers Game 1 in Vegas on Saturday. So a lot to look forward to in both those series, as Game 6 last night and Game 7 were both blowouts for the Heat, in favor of the Heat and the Vegas Golden Knights last night. So we'll get to that here a little later on. We'll start off today's show, though, talking all things Yankees, specifically Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge, yet again last night, was just, phenomenal. And again last night, he proved why he was the best player on the planet. And again, he's going to be right in the heart of the MVP race. What Aaron Judge did last night, what he continues to do on a night in and night out basis. He's got 17 home runs in the year. He hits 2 home runs last night, robs a homer off of Teoscar Hernandez, all of that great stuff. Last night, Yankees go out, get a win Game 1 of the 3-game set against Seattle, win Game 1 of this important West Coast road trip, and a lot to like last night if you're a New York Yankees fan. So we'll start today talking about that, and then we'll get to the Heat and the Celtics Game 7 last night. We'll recap it, what went wrong for Boston. Where does Boston go from here? Is Joe Mazzulla, is he the coach next season? Is the Boston, do they move in a different direction? Joe Mazzulla, obviously, after Game 3, said he lost the locker room after that 26-point loss in Game 3 down in Miami. They come back, win Game 4, Game 5, and Game 6. Thriller in Game 6. Do they fire him? Does he come back? What happens to Joe Mazzulla? And the Boston Celtics have a lot of other questions as well to answer this offseason. And the Miami Heat will head to Denver to face the Nuggets in the NBA Finals. So we'll get to that later on. We'll also get you ready for tonight's game between the Yankees and the Mariners, and the Mets open up a 3-game set at Citi Field against the Phillies tonight. Ranger Suarez, who has struggled in his 3 outings this year, versus Kodai Senga. Obviously, first season with the Mets, first season in the MLB. Has had some good moments, has had some bad moments. We'll see what they can do tonight. Mets looking to bounce back after a really rough road trip, losing 2 of 3 in Chicago, and then 2 out of 3 over the weekend in Denver to the Rockies. With their pitching wasn't good. Verlander got rocked, all that stuff. So after a good weekend last weekend, Mets had a rough week this past week. They look to bounce back coming up here against the Phillies, starting tonight at a 3-game set at Citi Field. So we'll get to that as well later on. But we'll start off today talking about the Yankees. As last night, the Yankees Game 1 of a 3-game set in Seattle, and obviously more importantly, Game 1 of a 6-game West Coast road trip. They play 2 more in Seattle. They'll have a day off Thursday, and then that series against the Dodgers is going to be awesome. You got Friday through Sunday, Yankees-Dodgers, going to be amazing, going to be an awesome series. Looking forward to it. And I'll just read you those pitching matchups to start. So in Game 1, you got Severino versus Kershaw. Game 2 of that series, you got Cole versus The Dodgers have yet to decide, and in Game 3 will be Herman and Bobby Miller, who is obviously a household name, but has put together a nice season up to this point, ERA below 2. So those are your pitching matchups for that game. Herman pitched well last night, but Game 1, Sevy, Kershaw, a lot to like in that Dodgers series. Game 2, you got Garrett Cole going. Dodgers haven't decided yet who they're throwing, but Garrett Cole against Mookie Betts, against Freddie Freeman. It's going to be an awesome series, so I'm looking forward to that. But obviously the Yankees got to first, take care of business here to close out the month of May here strong, and they did that last night. And if you look at Sunday's game and you look at last night's game, the Yankees have now scored 20 runs in the last 2 games. They've outscored their opponents 20-11 in the last 2 games. The 10-7 win on Sunday over the Padres, and then last night they put up 10 more runs, 10-4. And you look at last night's lineup to start, and you look at the lineup, and obviously IKF is at shortstop. Volpe gets the day. Rizzo gets the day as well, was dealing with some neck stiffness. They don't think it's anything major after the collision with Tatis at first base on Sunday. But you look at the lineup last night, and it's Torres, Judge, Calhoun, LeMahieu, Bader, Bowers, IKF, Higgy, and Oswaldo. And you're like, all right, you don't have Rizzo in the lineup, which is a big loss. Obviously, a guy who's batting over 300 this year. He's making a legitimate case so far this season to be an all-star candidate, which would be in Seattle, the all-star game this season. You don't have Rizzo in the lineup. You don't have Volpe at short. You're putting IKF at short, who has done a lot this year. Had the walk-off over the weekend. Has been a nice piece for this team in terms of his able to play third, able to play short, able to play the outfield, can even give you some reps at catcher if you need him to, although the Yankees obviously haven't been put in that spot this year at the catcher position, but he's done a lot for the Yankees, learning to play the outfield, all that stuff with IKF. You put him at short, his defense obviously isn't as good as what Volpe's done this year, and his defense struggled last season. That was a big reason why the Yankees made a change at shortstop this year. But you look at last night's lineup, you're thinking to yourself, all right, against a really good young arm in Bryce Miller, who going into last night's start, there was so many numbers that Michael Kay and Jeff Nelson were putting out on the broadcast last night about how many runs he was, letting up per game. I mean, he went into last night with an ERA below 2. And he comes out of last night's game, his ERA swells up to 3. Went into last night's game with a 1.15 ERA through his first 5 outings of his career, and he's had some really good outings against some good teams. Those good teams have included the Braves, the Astros, has pitched well against those teams. Goes out last night, and the Yankees get the job done with, I guess if you want to call it, a shorthanded lineup. And there's a lot to like right now with this Yankee team. You got Stanton, Donaldson, and Tommy Kahnle today playing rehab assignments at Somerset with the Somerset Patriots, their AA affiliate. Obviously, you got those 3 guys there tonight, which should be an awesome, fun to watch, obviously, to see Stan and all them, out there with the Somerset Patriots. So you got that tonight. Once those guys come back, Hanley's a big boost to the bullpen. Donaldson's not great, but you see what he can do. He's going to be their everyday guy. And you get Stan back in the lineup, and if Rizzo continues to do what he does, Judge continues to do what he does, and you get Stanton back, who obviously we all know what he can do power-wise, there's a lot to like, and this Yankee season is really starting to turn around. And they're now 10 games up on 500. They're 33-23. They had that kind of rough 3-game stretch after they blew the game against the Orioles. Lost 2-3 against Baltimore. Finished out the homestand strong with 2 straight wins. They've extended their win streak now to 3 straight. There's a lot to like, especially last night going up against a good young arm. Not very tall, not very long, lanky, but picks up a lot of velo. He has a long stride. He's not extremely fast, but his velo plays quicker. It's 96, but it plays faster because he's got a long stride, and out of the hand, it's coming out closer. So it's 96, but it plays a little quicker on the hitter with his long stride and how deep he gets into the bottom of that mound. Last night, you could even see it on the broadcast. They were showing it a lot with how long his stride is and how his fastballs, they sit 96, 97, but they play quicker on a hitter with his long stride. Yankees did well last night. I was super just satisfied with the performance because you go into last night's game, West Coast trip, you had a really nice win on Sunday. Now you got to head across country. Cross-country trips are never easy for teams, whether you're hot, whether you're struggling. They're never easy. The flight, the time change, all that stuff. To go out there last night with a little bit of a shorthanded lineup and to get the job done, very pleasing if you're a Yankees fan. and a lot to like. The one negative was Bader left the game early. Was kind of out of the box, was running, and then obviously Crawford bobbled it at short, got to first, and he kind of was just gingerly, he got up gingerly after running down to first. We don't quite know what it is, but Boone said they'll know more tomorrow. They don't the first round of testing on Bader doesn't seem to be anything major, but they'll know more tomorrow. That's what Boone said. So hopefully it's nothing major for Bader, because you're getting Stanton back. You don't want Bader now to be out of the lineup now that Stanton's back, because then that wouldn't be a fully complete lineup. You don't want that. So it's going to be interesting, though, to see what the Yankees do with their lineup and how they maneuver it once Donaldson comes up, because someone's going to have to get sent down. And same thing with Stanton. Is it Bowers or Willie Calhoun? Willie Calhoun had a nice game yesterday. Went 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs. So Willie Calhoun had a nice game. Bowers went 3 for 4 as well. All around, the guys were hitting last night. I mean, the Yankees racked up 18 hits last night. I mean, they were hitting all over the place. Up and down the lineup, everyone was hitting. I don't know what the Yankees are going to do. They're going to have to option 2 guys, because they're going to have to bring up Donaldson. They're going to have to bring up, obviously it's easier for the bullpen to option a guy, just because there's many guys in that bullpen that, have options that the Yankees can move on from. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Yankees do once, does Oswaldo get optioned? That's a question there, because he's got options. Do you send Oswaldo down? He's obviously not had a very good year. He's currently batting 195. It's going to probably be between Calhoun and Bowers as to who stays up. I mean, I'd probably say Calhoun. I think, Bowers had a good night last night, but all in all, full body of work, Calhoun's been better. But it's funny because he had the reverse announcer jinx last night on the broadcast. Sometimes the announcers say stuff and then they jinx it, like jinxing a no-hitter. But the reverse announcer's jinx was, Michael Kay said, oh, yeah, the one thing Calhoun's in the lineup tonight is he can turn on a fastball. Inside fastball, he can turn on it. Next pitch, boom, 97 inside at the hands. Calhoun turns on it, puts on the burners, and gets to second base. So that was a nice double to get things started. Obviously, didn't turn out to be anything, but still was a nice night there for Diet Calhoun. Up and down the lineup, everyone was hitting. Judge with a double, IKF double, Judge with a home run, big night for Judge, 3 for 4. And I got to get into Aaron Judge, because what Aaron Judge does and is continuing to do is just remarkable. And I think we can all agree, maybe not Angel fans, maybe many baseball fans might not agree, but Judge is the best player on the planet. And I know you have Shohei Ohtani, and I understand, nowadays there's kind of a difference in opinion in what most valuable player means. Most valuable player these days are kind of a little, it's kind of lost, it's lost its true meaning. Like, most valuable player is a guy that truly brings the most value to a team. Like, it is what it says it is. Nowadays, in basically every league, the most valuable player is whoever can put up the most numbers. In the NFL, it's whoever puts up the most passing yards and touchdown passes. That's really what it is. It's become a quarterback-driven award. In the NHL, it's whoever puts up the most goals. In the NBA, it's, Jokic. It's guys like that. These guys that are putting up crazy stat lines. And in the MLB, last year with Judge winning most valuable, he truly is and was the most valuable player. And I keep using this example. A lot of, again, nowadays in sports, the award, the meaning of best player or most valuable player has just turned into a guy that can just put up the best numbers. But we have to truly recognize, and again, so many fans sometimes don't realize this, you take Judge out of this lineup, this team's going nowhere. And I always say that Shohei is great. He's awesome. Don't get me wrong. Pitching, hitting, all that stuff. But, you take Shohei out of the Angels lineup, they're not a playoff team with him in the lineup, and they're not a playoff team with him out of the lineup. Like, you take Judge out of the Yankees lineup, they're probably borderline they probably aren't a playoff team. They probably aren't. You put Judge in the lineup, they're a legitimate threat. Just what one guy does to this organization and has lived up to the captain and has lived up to all the hype and expectations, the contract. Judge went into this season with a whole lot of pressure on him. There was a lot of pressure on Judge this year. You got to come through. You're the captain. You got this big contract. You've got to find a way here to win a championship. A lot of pressure was on Judge this year. You can make the argument there might be more pressure on Judge this year than there was during his home run chase last year. I'd probably disagree, but you can make the argument going into this season there was more pressure on Aaron Judge than there was for him to hit number 62 last year. You could probably make the argument. I would probably take the side that there was more pressure for him to hit 62, but a lot of pressure going into this year. New York, Yankees captain, big contract. You know, fans expect you hit 62 home runs. Fans expect you to go out there this year and put up at least 45, 50 again. And Judge has lived up to all those expectations yet again. And I mean, last night was just another one of those nights where you're witnessing greatness. I mean, you can make the strong argument. I know he's 31, and I know that he's got a lot more career left, and he's in the first year of this 9-year extension and all that stuff. And I don't want to look too far ahead. You got to enjoy greatness while you're watching it, obviously, because time flies, and days of watching Tom. Obviously, like you got to enjoy watching Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's great. He's an all-time great. He's going to go down in history as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time if he keeps it up. Aaron Judge is going to go down as one of the greatest Yankees of all time. Does Aaron Judge go down as one of the greatest Yankees of all? Does Aaron Judge, when all is said and done, go down as the greatest Yankee of all time? It's an interesting conversation to have because if he continues on this path and let's say wins a championship or two and continues to rack up 300 batting average seasons, 45, 50 home run years, I mean, this is a guy that could go down as one of the greatest Yankees of all time. I mean, he's heading on that path. And it's nights like last night where you just sit there in awe of what this guy can do. Whether it's what he did against Baltimore, hitting the home run against Felix Bautista to tie the game and get the game into extra innings, and obviously the Yankees go on to win, or whether it was like it was last night where he robs a homer and hits 2 home runs himself, one of those hitting obviously the foul pole earlier in the game. And again, something that's so special about Aaron Judge is, well, number one, not only what he can do at the plate, but what he can do in the field. There's not many guys that are able to hit at that high of a level and still put together what he can do in the outfield. I mean, this guy, not only a gold glover, you can make the argument he's a platinum glover, but definitely gold glove for sure. And number two, and again, I don't like to use this, I'm not trying to knock Pete Alonso, but it's a city comparison. They're the 2 big home run hitters in the city. Stan, obviously, is another big home run hitter as well, but they're the 2 big power guys in the city, right? Alonso and Judge. They're the 2 bigger names in the city. I think you can probably get like Alonso and Judge are probably the 2. Judge is the face of the Yankees franchise. I don't know if you want to say Alonso is the face of the Mets. I don't know. The Mets are weird, but either way, Alonso and Judge, 2 big power hitters in New York, right? One thing that separates Judge amongst, apart from Alonso, apart from the Kyle Schwarbers of the world, is not only can this guy go out there and hit 45-plus home runs a year, but when you look at the batting average, he's 13th in baseball with a .302 batting average this year. You look at last year, he hit 62 home runs. 62 home runs. And he batted .311. And he had an on-base percentage of .425 last year. You look at this season. He's tied for second in baseball with 17 home runs, and he's got a batting average of .302. He's got an on-base of .408. That's what makes him so special. That's what completely separates him from the rest. Is nowadays you see a lot of guys, your typical power hitters, if you're hitting 45 home runs a year, let's say you hit 45 home runs, most likely your batting average is probably 230, 220, maybe 215, 220 probably, right? You're a home run or bust guy. You look at Alonso. He's not a high average guy. He leads the league in home runs. He's batting like 232. You look at Schwarber. The guy hits bombs all the time. He was second in the MLB last year in home runs, led the National League. He was in the low 2s in the batting average. He was just above the Mendoza line. I think he's batting below 200 this year, but he's hits for power. That's what a lot of these guys are. They're power or bust. Judge is not. That's what makes him so special. He's one of these rare kind of players. A Stanton, you could throw Stanton in that category too. I love Stanton. But let's be honest here. Stanton's power or bust. He's a 240, 250 hitter. He can hit 30-plus home runs, but he's going to hit homers, but he's going to strike out a lot. He's not a big contact guy. He's going to be, 240, 250 batting average. When he's hot, he can get into the 260s, but primarily he's a 240, 250 guy. Judge, on the other hand, it's crazy. He can bat above 300 and hit 45-plus, hit 62 home runs, and finish the year top 5 in the American League, top 5 in baseball in batting average. I mean, that's just crazy. You don't see that every day. You're witnessing greatness with this guy. And then he can go out there and rob a homer. I mean, it's unbelievable. And look, I'm not trying to sit here and say that Aaron Judge is going to go out and hit 63 home runs this year and beat his record. But when you look at the numbers from this year to last season, on pace, he had 18 home runs last year at this time he had 18 home runs at this point last year. He's got 17 this season. And to put it into perspective, he was on the IL this year. He had a 10-day IL stint. It was the minimum, but he had a 10-day IL stint. He's not on the IL for those 10 days. You can make the argument this is a guy right now could be at 20 home runs. You can make that argument. He could be at 20 home runs. He could actually probably, right now, he could be ahead of his pace from last year now if he wasn't on the IL for 10 days. That's what's crazy about it. So I'm not saying that he's going to hit 63 home runs. The chances are of him doing that are so slim. Although we went into last year and said, hey, what are the chances Judge in a contract year, has fun and hits 62? Everybody was saying that, and sure enough, he went on to do it. So this guy has proven to us that he can do anything. I mean, he really can. That's just how dominant he is. But he's probably not going to hit 63. But I mean, there's a good chance he hits 50, 55. I mean, there's a really good chance he's hitting another 50-plus home run year. And oh yeah, keeping that batting average up. So when you look at his numbers, 302 batting average, that's 13th in baseball. He's tied for second in baseball at 17 home runs. He's tied for 11th in baseball with 38 RBIs, and he's first in baseball in OPS. Look at his slash line. 302 batting average, 408 on base percentage, 679 slugging, 1.087 OPS. And it's funny because if you compare his WAR to Shohei Ohtani's WAR, he actually has a higher WAR than Shohei Ohtani. I believe he does. I believe he has a higher WAR than Shohei. I think I saw a stat earlier in the day that he has a higher WAR. So, again, not trying to completely just make this a comparison between Judge and Shohei, but you look at what he can do in terms of, you look at his WAR and stuff, he has a higher WAR than Shohei Ohtani. Judge does. Judge is like a 2.3. I think it was Shohei's like a 1 or something like that. It's not as high as Judge. So when you look at that comparison, he does have a higher WAR. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, it's just crazy. Last night again was another one of those nights where you're just sitting there watching the game and you're thinking to yourself, man, I mean, this guy's unbelievable, watching greatness with Judge. And I mean, look, is he better than he was last year? I mean, you could certainly make the case that probably defense. I mean, I feel like this year. And maybe I'm wrong because there was a stat I saw earlier today. It was something like Judge, like this is 2 times now Judge has hit home runs in games and robbed a homer. It's like the first time since somebody did it in like 30-something years. It was something crazy, like something that Judge would do. But defensively, I feel like this year, and maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just because this year is fresh in your head and last night just happened and you don't remember every single play he made last year in the field because it's last season now. But I feel like this year, and again, maybe it's because it's in the moment and we've seen a lot of great things already happen this year, but I feel like this season he might be better defensively than he was last year. Like in terms of big time plays, I mean, he's already robbed like a homer or two this year. And I mean, we've already seen him make diving catches. I mean, he's got a cannon in right. I mean, it's just, and again, last year too, he was able to he played some center last year too. I think he's gotten some center field this year, but it helps that, you have Bader out there. Hopefully nothing major, but you look at the Yankees now as a team, they have 2 guys now hitting above 300. You got Judge above 300, and you got Rizzo above 300. So, again, I mean, it doesn't it's obviously pretty cool to see that, two guys batting above 300. As a team, though, their batting average is still, they're 241. So they've definitely increased their batting average. It was, for a while there, it was in the 230s. Now it's reached into the 240s as a team. But you got two guys hitting over 300. Rizzo right now still has a slightly 2-point lead on Judge in overall batting average. Rizzo is 304. Judge is 302. You look at the team leaders in batting. So Rizzo leads the team in average. Judge leads the team in home runs, RBIs, and on base. Rizzo leads the team in hits with 62. However, Judge is right behind. Actually, Judge has 49 hits, so a little further behind. But Rizzo is up there. So it's leading in hits. It's Rizzo, Torres, then Judge. Home runs is Judge, Rizzo, then Torres. So Judge has 17, Rizzo has 11, then it's Torres, and then it's everybody else. So that's how it's looking. But what a time to be a Yankee fan watching Judge every night. Go out there and just dominate. So tonight you'll get Nasty Nestor versus Logan Gilbert. Nestor 4-2 with a 5.30 ERA. It's going to be interesting to see how Boone handles Nestor tonight. Because we've seen a lot of times with Nestor, you look at his splits between his early innings and in the later innings, or when he sees a team for the third time third time through the batting order, it's crazy, his numbers. Like, the first two times through the order, his ERA is like in the 1s to like 2s. And then when he sees the lineup the third time, his ERA is like in the 5s. It's crazy, the splits, when you look at it. So it's going to be interesting if tonight, if the Yankees have, if it's a closer game, or maybe Boone says, hey, it's a 6-7-0 game. Or let's say it's like a 5-0 game. Maybe he says, all right, hey, look, you threw 5 innings, build your confidence a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how Boone does that, because it's been a legitimate concern. And I know sometimes, coaches these days take an analytical approach at things, not seeing a guy through, or not having a guy see the lineup a third time, or the lineup see that pitcher a third time, whatever way you want to word it. But with Nestor, it's a legitimate issue. Like, he's not able to, he's just, third time through the order, he has really struggled. So how does Boone handle that tonight? If Nestor's cruising 5 innings like he was against Baltimore, 1 run, and is efficient, 6 innings, let's say, does he throw him back out there with the risk of him getting hurt again through the third time through the order? Or does he play it safe and kind of build his confidence and go with the bullpen for the next 3 innings? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Boone handles this. Because, again, you don't want to take him out with 65 pitches through 6 innings or 70 pitches through 6 innings and your bullpen blow it, but you also don't want to leave him out there like he did against Baltimore, let up a 3-run homer, and all of a sudden, instead of it being 5-1, it's 5-4, and now you put your bullpen in a tough spot. So, it puts the pressure back on the offense to get some more run support. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Boone, and they continue to handle Nestor, because the first 2 times through the order, he's been good. And then it's that third time through the order where he really struggles. Do the Yankees let it fly tonight and see what he can do? Do they play it safe, and once, 2 times through the order, they say, hey, you're done? It's going to be interesting, because it's been a serious issue with Nestor, So we'll see. So you got Nestor versus Logan Gilbert tonight. Logan Gilbert comes into the game with 3-2, 3.60 ERA, one of their younger pitchers that they've got. Mariners are loaded with some young talent on that pitching staff. You got Castillo, who obviously isn't completely young, but Castillo. You got Gilbert. You got George Kirby, who I believe the Yankees will face George Kirby tomorrow. You obviously got Gilbert, who they'll face today. You got Bryce Miller, who they faced last night. So there's a lot of young arms in that Seattle rotation. A lot of young, fresh arms in that Seattle rotation. That's definitely exciting. But the Yankees, tattooed Bryce Miller last night. Definitely his worst start of his young career so far. So actually, I'll look at the final line here. So the final line for Bryce Miller, 4 2/3, 8 earned. 4 2/3. So definitely his worst outing. It was 4 2/3, 11 hits, 8 runs, 8 earned, no walks, 3 Ks, 2 homers. ERA again went into the game way below 2. Was just above 1, and his ERA now swells to 3. That's what Aaron Judge and company will do to you as a young pitcher in the MLB. So that's what I got for the Yankees here. Game 2 tonight against Seattle. Look to win the series, and then you go for the sweep tomorrow with Clark Schmidt on the bump tomorrow. So we'll see what the Yankees can do. I would love a sweep of Seattle. So then you go into that Dodgers series feeling good, 5 straight wins, feeling good. I would like that, but we'll see. I would still take 2 out of 3, but obviously sweeps are definitely a nice bonus, especially before playing a very good Dodgers team coming up later this week. All right, so now we move on here to the NBA. As last night was obviously Game 7, and look, I'm not a Boston sports fan, so by no means am I wishing Boston won. I was glad that the Heat won. I think the Nuggets are going to win the NBA Finals anyway. Whoever came out of it, I think the Nuggets are going to win. I think Jokic is just dominant. Jamal Murray's been great. The Nuggets have been phenomenal this postseason. And again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer and say this is going to be a bad series, but, we'll preview it and all that stuff. But I would probably go on to say that the Nuggets probably, win this upcoming NBA Finals. But last night, and again, I hate Boston sports, but I was hoping for a little bit of a closer game, just from a fan perspective. I was rooting for the Heat. I wanted the Heat to win. I don't like Boston, but I was hoping for, a closer game, where, the final 3-4 minutes meant something, but last night it was a blowout. And I guess really, if you want to say the big story of the game, it was Jason Tatum getting hurt in the first play, the first 10 seconds into the game, really. The Celtics win the tip. They get it to Tatum. Tatum falls or goes up for he was kind of driving, goes up for the shot, gets fouled. Coming back down, twists an ankle, rolls it ankle over on another guy's foot, and sure enough, the rest of the game he wasn't the same, and that was kind of the story of the game last night. Obviously the Heat dominated from start to finish, and we talked about this a lot. Yesterday we talked about it. Even last week when the Celtics started to come back. The biggest thing with the Celtics and the biggest concern with the Celtics going into last night's game. And nowadays, too many NBA teams are built like this, but they live and die by the three-pointer. And the Celtics last night shot 9 of 42 from the three. And yeah, I'm not joking when I say that. They shot 9 of 42 from three-point range. They shot 21.4%. That's 21.4% from three. Again, I'm taking this right off ESPN. This is not me joking. I know that's horrible, but that's what happens when you live and die by the three. Tatum was not himself. If Tatum doesn't get hurt, do the Celtics lose this game? I don't know. I know there's a lot of people today saying, oh, the Tatum injury hurt. And obviously it did. He wasn't the same. You can tell he was, didn't have the same burst, didn't have the same speed. Shot 5 of 13 from the floor, only had 14 points. He did have 11 boards, so was getting on the boards, but he wasn't himself. If Tatum doesn't get hurt, in that first possession, not saying the Celtics would have won. Is it a closer game? Who knows? Either way, they lost by 19 at home. That can't happen. Game 7 in your own building, Miami went in and dominated. And, again, you look at all the guys last night that potentially could have had big games. Jimmy Butler was very good, but it was really Caleb Martin last night. It was the Caleb Martin game. Caleb Martin, a guy who during the regular season put up about 9.6 a game and about 4 rebounds a game, went into last night, put up 26 and 10, shot 11 of 16 from the floor, 4 of 6 from 3, and will go down in NBA lore as one of the more a very good Game 7 performance. Again, it was him and Jimmy Butler leading the way, but especially late, Caleb Martin made some big shots to pull away from Boston, and it was the Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler show last night. It wasn't the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown show. It wasn't the Jimmy Butler show all by himself. It was the Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler show last night. 28 from Butler, 26 from Caleb Martin. All in all, the Heat shot very well. They shot 50% and even 50%, 14 of 28 from 3. They shot 48.8% from the floor. The Heat were the better team last night from start to finish. They got off to the good start, and there was really no looking back. And again, I kind of said last night or yesterday during the podcast, this game is going to be won and lost in between the ears. It's the confidence. And to me, I was wrong. I said Boston had more confidence. You watched the game from the start. Miami had a lot more confidence. They built their confidence early on too, with a lot of shots going in. Celtics only had 15 points in the first quarter, so shots were falling for Miami. They gained confidence early on, and there was no looking back from start to finish. This was all Miami and a 19-point victory on the road in Game 7. And now they head to Denver to face the Nuggets. And, again, it's interesting, what Boston does in the offseason. This is another really disappointing finish. It's basically the exact same situation as last year, except last year Boston won in Game 7. This year it was Jimmy Butler who beat Boston in Game 7. But you look at something last night that the TNT crew brought up. So this is the Celtics, kind of history here recently. So they went 57-25 this year, second in the East. They've reached the Eastern Conference Finals for the 5th time in the last 7 seasons. They have yet to grab a ring in the 5th, in these last, the 5 times they've got to the Eastern Conference Finals, they weren't able to pull through, get to the finals, or finish the finals. Obviously, last year they got to the finals, couldn't finish the job. This year they're on the doorstep, 1 game away, couldn't finish the job this season. So there's been a lot of painful exits. They've got to find a way to finish this Celtics team because, you're in the prime years of Tatum. You're in the prime years of Jaylen Brown. I know Jaylen Brown's obviously, his contract expires after next season. Grant Williams is a restricted free agent. Again, Tatum and Marcus Smart and those guys will be, on the team. Same thing with, Derek White, obviously the game, 6 heroics to force a Game 7 with the putback. He'll be back next season, but for this Boston team, they've got to find a way to finish because you're wasting the prime years of Tatum. He was a rookie in 2018. When they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, they lost Game 7 to the Cavs and LeBron James. He's got to find a way. This Celtics organization's got to find a way to get him to the finals and get him to win a finals because you're wasting his prime years. His prime years right now have been getting to the NBA Finals, losing last year, and getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and having a lot of painful losses, especially in Game 7, like they did in 2018, like they did this year in Game 7. They've got to find a way to finish and get over the top. Whether or not Joe Mazzulla is back next year, that's going to be interesting. Look, I would no doubt if they would have won this game and got to the NBA Finals, he's back. Is he back after this? I don't know. I mean, they get crushed in Game 7 on your home court. Again, part of it was Tatum getting hurt, but the Heat did a lot of really good things last night. I mean, defensively, the Celtics were, in the Celtics, throughout the season, this is the one issue with the Celtics, they win games by making tough shots. That's not always going to last in the postseason. When you're facing good teams in the playoffs, you're not, it might work in the regular season, but in the postseason, you're not always going to find ways to win games making tough shots. The Celtics last night, and credit to the Heat, didn't get many good looks. So, yeah, they shot 21% from 3, and you might be able to say, man, they couldn't make any shots, but it was also part of it because they were taking contested shots, and they didn't get many good looks. And that's an issue. And you kind of saw that, even last, again, this is a team that lives and dies by the three-pointer. They're going to win, now in Game 6, they didn't shoot the 3 very well, but they still found a way to win. Again, it was the late-game heroics, and the late-game heroics were won because Marcus Smart missed the three-pointer. So, if you, again, they live and die by the 3. The Celtics got to figure out a way to balance out their offense a little bit more because in these playoffs, again, now the NBA nowadays is a lot more of a three-point driven league. We all know that. But you got to have a little bit more balance, especially some of these shots and some of the shot selection that they take, not really getting many open looks. And when other teams have the perimeter locked down, the Celtics don't win. Like, they can't win. They're kind of one-dimensional at times, and they looked like that last night. So, look, I don't know. I don't know what Joe Mazzulla's future is. Whether or not he comes back, we'll see. He openly admitted that he lost the locker room after Game 3, after they lost by 26 down in Miami. And after that point, they won 3 straight. Now, you still go back home. You still lose the Game 7 at home. The fact that you got to Game 7, you could look at it both ways. The fact that he found a way to rally the team and get to a Game 7 was huge. But again, Game 7 in your home building to lose by 19, no matter if your star player, wasn't fully healthy or not, it still wasn't a good look for him. So how do they play it out? Obviously, Ime Udoka got fired last year. Do the off-the-field stuff, off-the-court stuff with the allegations and stuff like that. You bring in Mazzulla. Do you fire him and bring in a third coach in a third year? Like, that would be 3 coaches in 3 years. If you want to try and build something championship-wise, you got to have some sort of sustainability at the head coach. Since they fired Brad Stevens, now that's 2 coaches in 2 years. If you fire Mazzulla, that's 3 coaches in 3 years. Who are you going to bring in? He's young. This was his first time in the playoffs. This was his first real coaching gig. He was an assistant. They promoted him. To take a team, again, last year, he was 1 game shy of getting to where they were last year. So it's not like it was a complete failure, but, you still have your questions there. Again, coaches can only do so much. At the end of the day, the way the Celtics, they just live and die by the three. He's got to fix that. They've got to find a way to fix that because some of the shots that they were taking last night were really poor. I mean, some of the shot selection, you can't just take contested threes and hope that it's gonna win you games. That just can't happen. Miami last night was overall just a better team. They were doing it from three, they were doing it from two, they were doing it all around. I mean, the Heat, the Celtics all in all shot 39% from the floor. Credit to the Heat, but some really bad shot selection from Boston too was a reason why they only scored 83 points last night. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'll tell you this. His seat would be a lot hotter if they lost this series in 4. The fact that they came back and got to a Game 7 maybe tells them, hey, I don't know. I mean, it just perplexes me how he lost the locker room. They win 3 straight. They still lose, and now all of a sudden he's going to be back. I don't know. I don't know quite what's going to happen. But all I know is Miami headed to Denver, playing the Nuggets. Game 1 will be Thursday, 8:30 Eastern on ABC. Should be an exciting series. Hoping for a good series there, and we will see. Nuggets open up as big favorites against Miami. So Miami gets another chance. Eric Spoelstra gets another chance to add to his championship resume with another finals title. We'll see if they can get the job done against Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. All right, so now we get into the games tonight in the MLB. You got the Yankees-Mariners, as I mentioned, 9:40 p.m. Eastern. You can find that on Again, it's Cortez versus Gilbert. Nasty Nestor looking to bounce back after a rough inning to end it for him against Baltimore last time out. And the Mets are back at Citi Field today after a really disappointing 2-4 road trip against the Cubs and the Rockies. They look to bounce back against a Phillies team that's coming off a series split 2-2 against the Braves. Mets are 27-27. Braves are 25, or Phillies are 25-28. Phillies got Ranger Suarez on the mound. He's 0-1 with a 9.82 ERA. 3 starts into his season has not been very good this year. It was very solid last year for them, especially in the playoffs. But he looks to find his footing this season with his 4th start of the year. And the Mets will roll out Kodai Senga, who is 4-3 with a 3.94 ERA, 7:10 p.m. Eastern tonight at Citi Field for the Mets. So we'll see what they can do. It's gonna be interesting. The Mets their bullpen has not been good. They're not rolling out any real high grade arms. I mean, they're rolling out guys that are, meh. Their bullpen hasn't been good. Their lineup, they're putting up runs against the Rockies, albeit at high altitude, but still they were putting up runs against the Rockies. Their starting pitching and bullpen didn't do well enough, especially on Saturday and Sunday, where McGill wasn't good on Sunday and Verlander was horrible on Saturday. So the Mets continue to just, you kind of scratch your head. What do the Mets do? And I know a lot of people are crushing Billy Epler, and rightfully so. The GM does deserve, a good amount of, blame, but you wonder also how much of this is Steve Cohen driven. Steve Cohen has a lot of say when it comes to, and owners always, eventually, usually Hal Stein will always have the final say. Like Brian Cashman can go out and do everything he can, and if Hal Steinbrenner says no, it's, a deal's not going to happen. At the end of the day, Hal Steinbrenner, every owner usually always has the final say in things. But it's, you kind of start to wonder, does Steve Cohen have a lot more say in this than, is it, playing the young guys? Does Buck want the young guys up? Or is it Billy Epler who wants the young guys up? Is it, or is it Steve Cohen? And it's interesting. And one thing I'll say about Cashman is, and again, I'm not a Cashman fan. You all know how I am. But one thing I will say about Cashman is he'll hold press conference. He speaks to the fans. What he says a lot of times is not always smart and not always sits well with the fans, rightfully so. But one thing he will do is if his team's struggling, he'll go out there and speak to the media, right? With the Mets, you haven't heard a single thing from Billy Epler. You haven't heard a single thing from Steve Cohen. They're struggling. They've been one of the more disappointing teams in baseball this year, and the front office has not said a word. So it's interesting. Yeah, kind of at some point they owe it back to the fans to say something, to say, hey, look, we're doing this, or not what they're doing, but, their thoughts on the season. Like, there's been no communication there at all. So it's just a really poor spot to be in for the Mets. It's been huge disappointment. I know they're only 500. I know when you look at it, it's not as bad as the Padres have been, where they're 5 games under 500. And look, they're 500, and they get a Phillies team coming in tonight that has obviously been underwhelming, but so have the Mets. So, you have an opportunity there, but been a huge disappointment so far, at 500 mark, when all the money that they've spent, not just last year, but the year before that, or this past offseason, but the offseason before that. So we'll see. We'll see what the Mets do, but it's got to start, too, with the bullpen. The bullpen's been horrific. Bats seem to be coming around a little bit. The bullpen has been horrific. So same thing with the starting rotation. Scherzer and Verlander have got to be Scherzer and Verlander. Scherzer pitched well on Friday, but Verlander he's had like one good start. And that's kind of it. Other than that, he's had some quality outings, but when you're paying him the money he's paying, Verlander's got to give you more than quality outings. He's got to give you a lot more. Same thing with Scherzer. So we'll see. Mets tonight, Yankees tonight as well. So a lot going on this Tuesday night. So as always, hope you enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. I'm thinking about doing a live stream tomorrow, potentially. I'll see if I'm going to get a video out as well. Also, stay tuned. Potentially we'll have a live stream later today, so stay tuned for that. More live stream content coming your way here over the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for all that. I'll keep you all posted on the social media here on YouTube as well. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.